What's up, RuneScapers? Welcome back to my exclusively RuneScape YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to be diving headfirst into RuneScape's brand new elite dungeon, the Dragonkin Laboratory. The Laboratory is RuneScape's second elite dungeon. If you haven't done the first elite dungeon, the Temple of Amanishi, you'll need to have completed it at least once before being able to access this new dungeon. For anyone who has not completed that first dungeon, I've dropped a link in this video's description which will take you to my solo walkthrough video of the previous dungeon. The Dragonkin Laboratory has 3 unique dragon bosses to take down solo or with a group of up to 3 people. In today's video, I'll be taking this dungeon down in a 3-person group. I'll go over the location of the dungeon, a few ways to get there, a look at my personal inventory and equipment, and of course, a first look at the general mechanics of the boss encounters. With all of that being said, if you all are ready, let's get to the bank and get ready to go. Now that I've got the setup figured out, it's time to actually get there. As you can see, I brought up Gilnor's world map, and I've focused it in on the wilderness. In the northeast corner of the wilderness, you'll see a small boss icon. This is the location of the Dragon Laboratory. There are many ways to reach the Dragon Laboratory, but in this video, I'll only go over 3 of the options I think people will find the most useful. For non-maxed players, a great method for getting to the dungeon is to use the grouping system's group teleport function. To use the grouping system's teleport function, you'll need to create a group in RuneScape's grouping interface. Once your group is created, select the Dragonkin Laboratory from the list of options in the interface. Then select Update your group. Once your group is updated, hit the Ready button and then follow the steps on screen to successfully teleport your group to the Dragonkin Laboratory. The next best option for non-maxed players is to buy Dragonkin Lab teletabs from the NPC located just outside of the dungeon's entrance. Be warned, they'll cost 1,000 dungeoneering tokens each. And last, but not least for those who can use it, the Max Guild portal. Okay, so I've got my team of 3, and we are now finally at the entrance to the Dragonkin Laboratory with our equipment and our food, and we're good to go. So when you click on the door, it's going to give you 3 options: normal mode, story mode, or not now. Just like the first elite dungeon, normal mode gives much better rewards, a little bit more difficult, and story mode is primarily just used to learn the basic mechanics of the dungeon. So in this first room, we're going to go down these stairs and we're going to attack the green laboratory slimes. Now there's a lot of them, so this is a prime place to use area of effect abilities and stack them all up upon one another to just take them out quickly and conserve food. It's a great spot for soul split if they're not all on you. If they're all on you, you're going to want to use protection prayers because they do hit a lot if they're all on you. So just be mindful of that. You can die in this first room. It doesn't happen too frequently, but if you're not paying attention, you can die. So just be careful. So there's no curveballs in these next two rooms. They're just standard red dragons. They do use dragon fire, so plan accordingly. But just kill the dragons in the rooms to take down the barriers, and just keep heading south.
We lose ourselves in the spirit of things. We lose our sight when we put our trust in things of this material world. The things that fade away, yet we keep coming back.
So when you get to this bridge, you're going to find a lot of magma golems. They tend to primarily attack with melee, so if you have a lot of them on you and you're within melee distance, pray melee. Otherwise, pray soul split if you don't have full health.
Of things we know.
In this room, there's some laboratory slimes, some flying books, and a celestial dragon in the southwest corner of the room. If you watch my character closely, you'll see that I chose to pray protect from magic because of the dragon in the room, but the laboratory slimes are attacking me with melee, and I almost died. This is a great example of that if you're not paying attention to the laboratory slimes, they can and will kill you. Taking down celestial dragons in this dungeon is pretty straightforward. However, they do have a special ability where they'll heal themselves if you allow them to. To prevent this from happening, when you notice them activate their special ability, make sure to activate one of your stun abilities to stop or prevent their healing process altogether.
Wizard, what do you see as you twist the tiles beneath our feet? What do you see?
After the last celestial dragon in this room is down, we can then move forward into the first boss encounter of the dungeon. The first boss's name is Astellarn. While it's a pretty straightforward fight, there are some mechanics you're going to want to know. The first ability that Astellarn will use is the summoning of a small pulsar star, which sends out waves of heat every couple seconds until it is destroyed. If you see the pulsar star, you should make it a high priority to destroy the star. The next ability that Astellarn will use is the summoning of a large black hole on the ground. If you're standing in the black hole, you'll be hit for large amounts of damage. After several seconds of the black hole being present, a player will be selected by Astellarn to lure a fireball into the black hole, which will then turn the hole white. Astellarn will then become attackable only while players are standing on top of the white hole while attacking him. If a player fails to lure a fireball into the black hole, Astellarn will remain unattackable for a period of time until the process repeats itself. The next relevant special ability are the stars falling from above. If the stars are falling down on top of you, you'll be consistently receiving damage from the stars, so don't stay under them for too long if you can help it. Once you've killed this last celestial dragon, head as far south as you can over a small indentation in a wall. It doesn't look like you can just walk over it, but you can. Once in the next room, you'll find a lot of lava spiders that are attacking with range. Make sure to pray range. They function similarly to the laboratory slimes, in that if they all gang up on you, they can do a lot of damage.
You're my obsession, you're pulsing through me. The blood is rushing and I am trusting you'll come save me.
The lava strike worms are pretty easy to dispose of. Either pray magic, or even pray soul split, and just dispose of them quickly. To avoid the remaining strike worms on the left, simply hug the right wall, and you can easily avoid them without having to engage. Up ahead are standard black dragons. The black dragons you'll encounter throughout the rest of this dungeon function exactly the same way as black dragons do that are outside of the dungeon. Okay, so we finally reached the second boss. Even though I had a lot of food left, I chose to make a bank run before the encounter, but my teammates chose not to. After this run, I realized that reasonably efficient 3-player teams shouldn't need to bank until right before the third and final boss. And even then, 3-player groups may elect not to bank before the final boss if they know the dungeon well and didn't take a lot of damage. Verak Lith is a reskin of the King Black Dragon, but don't let its appearance fool you. Its mechanics are much more intricate than that of the KBD. The second boss of this dungeon is slightly more difficult than the first of this dungeon. However, it isn't too difficult once you get the hang of it. For Verak Lith's first special attack, you'll receive a red on-screen notification that he has slammed his tail against the ground. When this happens, a couple seconds later, rocks will spring up from the ground that you must destroy in order to do damage to the boss again. If these rocks are not destroyed, you will not be able to do damage to the boss. When the rocks spring up, you'll be hit for melee damage. You can reduce this damage by temporarily praying melee, using devotion, or using other defensive abilities. The next special attack you'll see is green arrows on the ground that signal for you to stand in them. If one of your teammates does not stand on a set of green arrows, everyone in the party will receive a 4K hit unless they used a defensive ability to nullify its damage. One of 3 elements will be applied to you after standing in the green arrows. You'll receive a red on-screen notification for what type of element you have to dispel after receiving it from standing in the green arrows. If you receive the poison element in your on-screen notification, then you'll need to either click on the shock or ice shells that are in the arena. If you have shock, then you must click on poison or ice shells. And if you have ice, then you must click on shock or poison shells. The point is that you must click on a set of eggshells that are opposite of the element you currently have on you. Other less important abilities include the summoning of a smaller dragon from above that sends an attack down on a specific player below. When this happens, simply do not stand in the red circles on the ground while this is happening. Another special ability Verak Lith may do is the shooting of a larger fireball at one specific player, which will then turn into a series of fiery tornadoes on the ground. When this happens, simply run away from the fiery tornadoes. Other than that, the fight really isn't that complicated. Your main threat is always the green arrow attack, and you should always be mindful of its existence.
When I close my eyes, I can almost see it. When I take a breath, you fill up my lungs. And if my mind worked backwards just for a minute, I'd hold on to you before the memory's gone. I remember you left my spirit. With you high is all I'm feeling. Remember how we felt alive. I remember you. I remember you.
The rest of the dragon mobs throughout the remainder of the dungeon are pretty straightforward, except for a unique attack where the dragon sends shards flying towards a player that may result in a high amount of damage if the player doesn't move. This attack can be foreseen by watching the dragon carefully and looking for shards flying slowly through the air towards a player. To avoid damage, simply move away from the area the player was originally standing when the attack was originally launched.
When I close my eyes, I can almost see it. When I take a breath, you fill up my lungs. And if my mind worked backwards just for a minute, I'd hold on to you before the memory's gone. I remember you left my spirit. With you high is all I'm feeling. Remember how we
the last 2 dragons before the final boss of the dungeon. If you haven't banked in a while, now would be a great time to do so. However, once the final boss fight begins, you can always teleport out mid-fight if you think you're going to run out of food. What happens next is kind of funny. The barricade before the boss fight will close if one of your teammates clicks on the dragon. Since I wasn't inside the arena before my teammate attacked the boss, I was effectively locked out. Don't be either guy in this situation. Wait till everyone is inside, yet also don't take too long to get inside. The final boss of the Dragonkin Laboratory is the Blackstone Dragon. Of the 3 bosses in this dungeon, this one has the most interesting special attacks and was the most fun to learn in my opinion. First, make sure to pray magic as the fight begins. It's important to stay away from your teammates throughout the duration of this fight. Periodically, you'll each be hit with a large shadowy AoE ability, and if your teammates are next to you, they'll also be hit as well. You can predict when this will happen by watching the boss closely and watching as it sends slow-moving shadows towards the players. When the shadows make contact, the area of effect attack hits the players. While this is happening, you also need to watch out for the same slow-moving spike attack that the Dragonstone, Onyx, and Hydrix dragons used from earlier in the dungeon. The combination of the shadow attack and the spike attack means that you need to always be aware of where you're standing throughout the beginning of this fight. Next, 4 large hands will spawn where the shackles around the center of the arena are located. If you're standing next to the hands, they'll use the same shadow attack the boss uses, so be mindful of this and step away from your teammates when you need to. Another attack that the large hands use is the same miniature hands attack that the final boss in the Temple of Amanishi used. These miniature hands spawn from underneath the large hands in each individual player's direction. Simply step around them. Once all the large hands are defeated, the Blackstone Dragon will become attackable again. A new special attack the boss uses is a purple fiery vortex that looks somewhat similar to the purple fire that Vindicta from God Wars 2 Dungeon uses. The purple fiery vortex will move in a circle inwardly towards the boss. If the fire hits you, it will deal rapid damage, so don't let it hit you. Next special attack is probably the most interesting one. The boss will begin flying up and landing down on the arena in a random location. When the boss lands, purple fire will spawn from where it landed in each individual player's direction. The trick for this part of the fight is to plan where you want to be walking ahead of time, so that the boss doesn't trap you with its fire. For this part of the fight, you should always be trying to look and see where the boss is going to land next, so that you know which directions you should be walking in to avoid being trapped by the fire. After some time has passed, the dragon will stop using this special attack and will become attackable once again. Just continue watching out for the same special attacks that I covered earlier, and you should be fine if you've made it this far already. you have it, another Elite Dungeon completed. I genuinely hope this day 1 walkthrough helps some of you get the hang of the dungeon and have some fun while doing it. If you have any questions about anything I covered, or something that you feel I wasn't clear about, please leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll try to clarify anything that I can.